I call this visual intersection theory. Um, these are the diagrams and pictures that I have laid out on here. I'll go through each one. The first one is a single 3D pixel unit versus the synergy of a group. At the top statement. This is a single 3D pixel unit. And as you can see, if light is sent through from one end to another, it only makes it through correctly straight on. If you had one at an angle, it wouldn't come through correctly. It wouldn't blend in correctly. Even if you turn it at this angle, bend it at this angle, now the straight on view is messed up and the angle view is pointing straight down. But as a group of 3D pixel units, there's a synergy among them that produces all this group activity where they all interact with each other. This is a single pixel unit. This is single pixel unit. Single pixel units. Single pixel units all around. This is a 3D perspective of the interface within the outer surface shell. These are some real models that I made. They don't work, but they're the real models I made based on these diagrams. And this sort of ties in with the second statement, one-to-many versus a one-to-one correspondence. This is a one-to-many wiring. If you wanted to make something invisible, you'd have to wire each 3D pixel element to all the others in a wiring, a simple wiring without the light interface concept. But with the light interface concept, you can reproduce the same web, a more intricate web where all of them are interacting with each other within the interface. Every single one of them will interact with each other, creating a whole intricate web of light through here. That's the one-to-one correspondence, or the one-to-many correspondence. In a one-to-many scenario, duplicated in the one-to-one correspondence, the one-to-one between the outer shell and the inner interface of the object. And all light interfaces take the same shape as the object itself. And as you can see through all these, all the light interfaces, which are just the inner nested shell of the object, takes the same shape as the object you want to make invisible. And I'll get to these in a second. This is a spherical light interface, a sphere within a sphere. This is an invisible object, a puppet light interface inside the puppet, inside the suit, invisibility suit. This is a televisual portal, and they have 3 interfaces, but I'll get to that. Okay. Metamaterial cloaks exist on the periphery of light interface optics. This shows a light interface cross section, and this shows a metamaterial cloak. And if you squeeze this down to the size of a point, or near the size of a point, you'll see that the metamaterial itself its system exists on the periphery of the intersection of invisibility. These are three-dimensional models of the same things up here. You don't make an object invisible per se. You make the space that the object rests in invisible. What I mean by that is that you can generalize any object shape into a sphere or a general shape. So, and light does that for you when it comes out, when it radiates. It automatically makes anything spherical. Spherical radiation. That's the only way you can make something invisible. So, the person's body, whatever shape that is, would lose its identity in the radiation of the light coming out to make it invisible, because it radiates at every single direction. A spherical radiation. Even the cube would have a spherical radiation of light, so it loses its cubeness in its invisible aspect as the spherical radiation of light. And of course, the sphere, the highest form of three-dimensional invisibility, radiates in a three-dimensional array, three-dimensional rays of light. It loses its identity, and that's what makes the televisual portal possible. Okay. Light interface invisibility produces a holodeck byproduct as a result of sending light through an object. Invisibility and holodecks are inverse forms. If you turn an invisible object inside out, you'd have a holodeck inside. And if you turned an invisible object outside in, you'd have a holodeck inside. And if you turned a holodeck inside out, you'd have an invisible object again. I didn't have that diagram readily available, and I forgot to put that on here. But I believe you could probably make sense of that statement with these low and high-tech forms of portals, televisual portal and photographic portal. All visual intersections contain the potential for invisibility, an interior holodeck backdrop, and a hologram interior foreground display. For the photographic portal, this was the dog toy I was going to use as the most easily available image to pull up. It would contain a photographic cloak on the outside, a photographic hologram inside, and our photographic backdrop holodeck inside, and a foreground invisible object, hologram inside, not an invisible object. And this diagram, I don't know if you can see it too well or not, is of the workings of two televisual portals. And it shows the telepresence of a person inside each other's holodeck. Outside it would be invisible. Interior would be a holodeck. And these three interfaces would produce the telepresent hologram. So generally, in any space contains the potential for an invisible cloak wrapped around an interior backdrop holodeck that holds an interior foreground hologram display, whether photographic or televisual. And lastly, there is an asymmetry between invisible objects and their holodeck byproducts. Invisible objects can be turned into any holodeck scenery, but a holodeck scenery can only blend into one outside environment. And so that leads to my speculations of, in order to correct that symmetry, that asymmetry, makes me speculate on the potential for the multiverse, a multiverse of infinite solutions to the asymmetry between an invisible object that can be made into any holodeck and a holodeck that can only blend into one outside environment. So if you go over these, you can freeze these, and these are my statements that I have for this visual intersection theory. I hope I explained myself clearly. This is a puppet light interfacing dual adaptive invisibility suit. Well, thanks a lot.